Hi, my name is Sayed Mubin Sajjad, and agenda of today's presentation is Introduction, Objective of Report, Historical Development, Acts of Parliament Protecting Property Rights, Limitation of Article 13, and Conclusion. Let's start with the importance of property rights. Property rights are crucial for individual freedom, social justice, and stable markets. They allow citizens to build livelihoods and secure their future, ensure equitable access to resources, and facilitate investments, market transactions, and wealth creation. Article 13 of Malaysian Federal Constitution deals with the property rights and protects citizens from arbitrary deprivation of property. It includes two further subclauses, Article 13.1 and Article 13.2. So objective of the report is critical analysis of property rights, evaluation of judicial interpretation, and assessment of mechanism limiting property rights. Now, let's talk about historical development of property rights. The Malaysian Constitution has evolved to protect property rights significantly. Before 1957, property laws were influenced by English common law. The Reid Commission focused on safeguarding these rights in the Malaysian Constitution. Post-independence, property rights shifted towards human right-based governance, becoming protected rights. So these are the acts of parliament which protect property rights. The Land Acquisition Act 1960 governs the process for acquiring private land in Malaysia. The National Land Code 1965 provides the legal basis for land tenure and registration. The torrent system requires the registration of land title to protect ownership, and Section 340 of the NLC confirms the indefeasibility of title. Article 13.1 of the Malaysian Constitution faces interpretation challenges regarding the term law. Initial cases upheld legislative supremacy over property rights, while modern interpretation emphasized fairness and natural justice. Ambiguity in defining law limits the scope of Article 13.1, necessitating further clarifications. The interpretation of property and deprivation in Malaysia is broad, including movable items and legal interests. However, the right to protect is not seen as a contractual right, causing insecurity for tenants. Cases like Station Hotel Berhad versus Malayan Railway Administration and Selangor Pilot Association versus Government of Malaysia highlights the judicial preference for narrow definition and limited protection for property owners. The definition of deprivation under Article 13.1 is debated, with courts favoring a narrow approach. Cases like Tasi and Ors versus Government of Sarawak show judicial expansion of property rights to include customary rights. Legislative protection for indigenous communities is still needed. The LAA 1960 imposes procedural safeguards on government, but protection for property owners is limited. Owners can be heard on compensation, but not on the acquisition itself. The government isn't scrutinized for acquisition necessity. The judicial stance on Article 13.2 allows executive discretion despite LAA 1960. The public purpose exception allows the government to transfer land to private entities for public or economic development. Under Section 3B, LAA 1960, this is determined by the state's opinion, giving the government broad discretion to justify acquisition and dilute property protection. Adequate compensation in Malaysian law is not full market value but a fair amount based on guidelines. Case like Jasmine Chi highlights the challenges in defining fairness, with court emphasizing reasonableness and practical issues. Despite Article 13.2, owners often feel inadequately compensated. Article 13 of Malaysian Federal Constitution outlines property rights but allow limitations for public purposes. Judicial interpretations and legislative exceptions shape its scope, leading to criticism of judicial conservatism. Broad exceptions make it easier for the executive to acquire land. Revising Article 13 is necessary to define property rights, lawful deprivation thresholds, fair compensation, and judicial oversights. Thank you.